Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. We have another exciting show planned for you tonight. We're going to talk about surcharges assessed with no driver's license, with DWIs, with all type of traffic violations. I think it's going to be exciting. Get ready to ask your questions. Don't forget to call us at 713-807-1794. In the studio is a young man who's had more than $13,000 in surcharges. His name is Ronald Richards. He started getting surcharges added to his ID card when he was 16 years old. He can't afford to get a driver's license, so he drives around without a license. He got another traffic ticket today. He doesn't have insurance, and I have two experts in the studio that are going to explain the law and tell Ronald Richards what he can do about it. So first of all, let me introduce Sylvester Turner, State Representative of District 139. He's also a very well-known civil lawyer in Houston. And also in the studio, I have Robert Utzler. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I'm sure he'll correct me. And he's the traffic ticket lawyer. He does traffic tickets, DWIs, anything surrounding your driver's license and other misdemeanors in Houston, the Harris County area. So without further ado, we're going to go straight to Ronald Richards to tell us about his problems. So Ronald, thank you for telling your story to our viewers.
Okay, well, started when I was like 16. I was driving, getting from school to home, and I started getting these tickets. Okay, well.
Now, why were you driving without a license, though?
Well, because I was 16, and the law back in, I think I was maybe 2008 or something like that, you couldn't get your driving license until you turned 17 without going through driver's eds. And I didn't have the money to go through driver's ed, so I was just trying to make it by getting to school and getting home. And I got pulled over a couple of times on the way. And what happened was they started putting these surcharges on me where I owed the money to the state for not having a driving license, also a ticket that you have to pay, and you owe the surcharge to the DPS office. Okay, well, I didn't have the money to pay them, and I still had to get to school, and I still had to get home, and from point A to point B, and I kept driving. And now I'm 21, and I have over 18 surcharges, which is over $19,000, and have no way to pay it.
And you know what's interesting? Today you're saying you have $19,000 worth. When I first met you a few years ago, you had $10,000 worth.
Yes.
How has it doubled?
That was maybe 3 years ago, I say, about 3 years ago. And I've had maybe 14 tickets since then, each one maybe $300-400 every 3 years. And if you add that all up, it's over $9 grand.
Do you ever have car wrecks?
Never had a wreck before in my life.
Okay, well that's good. So you can't get insurance, right?
No, well actually the cars that I drive, I can get insurance in somebody's name, like my mom or my dad, and I can just drive it and I'll kind of get the no insurance ticket beat because I still had insurance on that vehicle. But
so the vehicle's insured, you just don't, it's just not in your name, the insurance, because the cars are either your mother's or your father's cars.
Yes.
So the cars are insured, you just can't get
I'm just not insured. So it wouldn't cover me if I had a wreck, but it would cover the vehicle and the person I had a wreck with. So I don't get the no insurance ticket, but I'll get the no driving license ticket.
Okay. Do you want a driver's license?
I would love to have a driving license. It really hold me back from going from visiting family members in another state, actually getting a good job. You know, I can't really have a good job because most jobs require a driving license, you know. And I was really looking forward to like the maybe hot shot truck driving because I'm young now and I can, you know, travel the state. And I can't get a driving license in Class E because, you know, because I have so many tickets. So I would never be able to get a driving license, and I won't be able to have a good job, you know. So
But you want one.
I really do want one.
We're going to figure this out for you by the end of the night. So, Sylvester, tell us about the law and the history of the law and what we can do about Ronald's problem.
Well, Ronald's problem started, it's not just Ronald's problem. There are a lot of people in the state of Texas that are facing this problem. The legislature, I think back in 2003, passed the Driver's Responsibility Act, and essentially we created this point system. That if you have like a moving violation, you get like 2 points. If you have a moving violation and you run into somebody, you get 3 points. Once you start getting 6 points, the surcharges start kicking in and you start paying. So if it's a DWI, it's like $1,000, and I think the second one may be $1,500, and this is annual, and then it accumulates over a period of time. And but the program came, the law was passed because hospitals, especially in our urban centers, we don't have enough trauma centers. And hospitals wanted the legislature to provide more funding, where instead of just coming out of the legislature's budget, they thought that, okay, why not get the money from those people who we are ticketing, driving while drunk or intoxicated, you name it. And so half of the money would go to the trauma hospitals for trauma care. The other half was going to the budget for the state of Texas. And then 1% was going to the Texas Department of Transportation to administer the program. But it has been counterproductive because, Vivian, what has happened is that there are a lot of people like Ronald who simply cannot afford the surcharges. And 60% of the people who receive these tickets, they don't pay it. Okay, so we only collect about 36%. And then on top of that, the money that was intended to go to the trauma hospitals, and that's about $300 million that's sitting in the state's treasury, the legislature is using to balance its budget for the state of Texas. So the money is not even going to the trauma centers.
Wow.
Okay? And so in 2007, I put an amendment on this bill to try to address people's problems like Ronald, to set up what we call an amnesty indigent program. And so if you're making 125% of the federal poverty level, and let's just say for a person that may be, let's say if you're making under $30,000, for example, then you can apply to this amnesty program through the Department of Public Safety, for example. And if you qualify, instead of, in Ronald's case, let's say you owe $19,000, it's 10% of what you owe, which would be $1,900 in Ronald's case, up to, but you start paying it, but it maxes out at $250.
So basically, if Ronald qualifies for this program, the maximum he can pay is $250.
$250.
Well,
and
that's what we're going to do, Ronald.
And as of last year, people start applying for the amnesty program, and about 27,000 people have taken advantage of it. But bear in mind, there are close to 1.2 million Texans that are driving without driving licenses because of this surcharge program.
And don't you think that that can affect people in getting insurance? Jobs. And we need them to have insurance if they have accidents with us. Luckily, Ronald is young enough to where he still lives with his parents, so he's usually driving their vehicles. Like today, he shouldn't be driving, but he's in his grandmother's car.
Right.
So that car is insured because your grandmother's how old, Ronald?
88.
She's 88, shouldn't be driving, but it's insured.
It's insured.
Right.
And it's an older car, so.
Well, the amnesty program is in effect right now. I will tell you, I am disappointed with the bill that we put in effect. I think it's been counterproductive. It's not saving the state's money. We're not building additional trauma hospitals, and we have more people on the road driving without licenses. And so in the upcoming session, which starts in January of 2013, my staff is already preparing another bill to repeal the Driver's Responsibility Act. Just get rid of it.
Period.
Period. Just get rid of it.
What does that mean when you say get rid of it? You won't get a no insurance ticket?
That means we will completely wipe out this whole all the surcharges.
All the surcharges, even for DWIs?
Just wipe them out.
Well, I know you're a Democrat, is that correct?
I'm a Democrat.
But our state legislature is mostly Republican right now, isn't it?
It's mostly Republican, and a lot of them are getting complaints from people like Ronald and many of their constituents saying, why are you all imposing these surcharges on us? For example, a Republican member, brought a little packet.
Yes.
There's a constituent in her district, and she is a Republican, in her district, who called saying, I can't afford it. And I make more than 125% of the federal poverty level. And it's costing me $300 a month, and I don't have $300 a month to pay on these surcharges. She turned around and had him to call my office.
Wow.
Saying, call Representative Turner and ask Representative Turner to help you out. Okay? I, in turn, called back and said, well, you and I can help him out. Because if you join with me in January of 2013, both Republicans and Democrats can correct a bill that was put in place for good reason, but not having a good result. And so I think when you recognize that what we put in place is not serving a useful purpose as we had hoped, I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging a mistake and then undoing it. And so we've tried to modify it. People have benefited from it now, but there are still a lot of people who are driving without insurance, but they're having to drive to go to work or to go to a hospital or to take care of some family responsibilities. So it doesn't make any sense to have that on the books. So the laws for DWI, you know, anything that existed prior to 2003 will remain in effect, but we can remove the surcharges.
Oh, well, I think a lot of people would be happy about that because there was a lot of noise made in the courthouse with those DWIs and surcharges because it's so expensive.
Right.
So you think that this might actually pass then, since your Republican brethren might want to join in?
Well, I would tell you, when I brought forth the amendment in 2009, the legislature was majority Republican. They supported the amendment to modify it, to put into effect the amnesty program. And so, you know, it's been in place. We've tried to make it work, but it's been disastrous. The consequences have been disastrous. Our streets are less safe, and people are still going to drive, and 60+% of the people are still not paying it. They can't afford it. Okay.
Wow, they can't afford it. Let's take a quick call. Caller, you're on. Please turn down your volume on your TV and just talk into the phone for me.
Yes, I was just wondering, I'm one of those people who have surcharges, and I was trying to figure out why do I have to pay surcharges under my ID and my driving license?
Okay, we have Robert Utzler here. Do you want to handle that, Robert?
Well, I can try, and it's Utzler.
Utzler, I'm sorry.
Not easy to say.
It's hard.
Well, you're going to pay one surcharge against one or the other. You're not going to pay double, but I do believe that the surcharge is being imposed against IDs if you don't have a license.
So, ma'am, are you saying that you get a letter, 2 letters, one for your ID card and then 1 surcharge letter for your driver's license?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you getting surcharges when you had an ID card before you got a license?
No, at first they was just giving it to me under my license, but I was paying the surcharges at the beginning of the year, paying them off, and then all of a sudden, when my license is revoked, I get it under my ID. So now I get 2 pieces of paper asking me to pay the surcharges. It's like 108 for my ID, and I forgot how much it is for my driving license.
How much more money do you owe?
I don't know. I haven't checked because I usually pay it at the beginning of the year.
So you don't. So right now you don't have a valid driver's license. Is that correct?
Correct. Right now I'm currently driving on a no valid driving license.
How much money do you make? And how much do you make, sweetheart?
Right now I'm currently unemployed. I'm under the doctor's care.
Okay. Well, you heard Mr. Turner talk about his amnesty program. You probably qualify, and I'm going to let Robert, the traffic ticket lawyer, talk to you now.
Well,
Okay, thank you so much.
Hold on, in case you want to ask me another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, you probably have multiple surcharges, 1 or 2 against the license that you had before you lost your license, and then another one against the ID when you got some other violation later with the ID. I don't think you're getting, I would doubt there's duplication. That's something that could be addressed. I'm sure DPS would fix that if that was the case. Do you know why your license was revoked?
It was revoked because I didn't pay the surcharge, but I just went to jail like 4 weeks ago for driving on a suspended license, and the police officer asked me the same thing, and I told him I didn't know.
Well, that's a very common problem. You know, that's what I do, and we have people that have light suspensions, and they may have 3, 4, 5 different kinds of suspensions, and trying to figure it out is a lot of work, and it's not easy for someone who doesn't know their way around. So you just have to dig into that and figure out what's causing the suspensions. You probably have several.
Okay, well, we want to say something more?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, if for those individuals who are listening to this program, and if, for example, if they're unemployed, right now, if they don't have any income, or let's say for certain if their income is let's say under $27,000, okay, then they more than likely would qualify for the amnesty program, and their surcharges can be reduced to a maximum of $250.
Okay, young lady, so it sounds like Sylvester Turner is telling you that Google and go online and see if you can do it yourself. Otherwise, you need to try to find a traffic ticket lawyer that'll do that for you. On this show, we cannot talk, you know, we can't ask you to hire us, so we're not going to say that. But we're just letting you know you can hire a traffic ticket lawyer, or you can try to do it yourself by Googling the amnesty program under the state of Texas.
It's on the DPS website.
It's on the DPS website. So go to the Texas Department of Public Safety website and see if you can do it yourself. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Y'all have a great day.
God bless you, sweetheart. Good luck.
And if they can't, Vivian, if they can't pay the $250, for example, they can enter into a payment plan. And let's say they're paying $25.
Right.
Okay? While they are making those payments, the suspension is removed.
Wow. So that's really good.
Right.
It's
So-
removed if there's not some other
Right,
suspension, and we often see a suspension like a hard suspension for driving while license invalid that occurred because you had a surcharge suspension and then you paid a ticket during the suspension, and then the DPS sends you a notice, hey, we see that you were driving during your surcharge suspension. What happens very commonly is individuals don't have current addresses that are on file with the Department of Public Safety. It's our job as licensees, as people that hold licenses, to notify the Department of Public Safety of our address. A Postal Service forwarding notice to the Postal Service does not work with the Department of Public Safety. The letters from DPS will say specifically on them, do not forward. So people are under the mistaken impression that if they put a new address with a notice with the Postal Service, they're going to get those letters. They won't get them. And that creates major problems because the notice goes out, another suspension goes into effect, they don't know about it, they get another ticket. Maybe the police officer tells them, maybe the police officer doesn't tell them. They could even get arrested if they don't have their good insurance with them at the time.
That sounds like one of the problems that caller might have had. We have another caller. Can we take him? Oh, guess not. I guess they hung up. Sorry about that. I guess we took too long. Sorry about that, caller. Call back. One of the things I think that might have happened with her, since she said she went to jail for driving with license invalid. Now, Ronald, do you ever go to jail for driving with license invalid?
I've been taken to jail quite a few times. What happened?
I'm only talking about that part.
Okay. Well, for driving license, that's what I'm saying. Quite a few times. Okay, what happens is you go to jail, and before you go pretrial, actually the judge in pretrial, she actually dismissed it. So I was charged with no ticket, nothing, because if they take you to jail for it, for suspended license, if you never had one, then why are you going to jail for suspended license? So they don't have a thing for, you go to jail for suspended ID. It's not in the system yet. So once you go to jail, they say no probable cause and they release you right off.
I see. Because see, what happens is a lot of times I know on some of your paperwork, it'll say it's like in the spot for his Texas driver's license, they'll put his ID number. But it's really a Texas ID. So sometimes if he gets arrested for driving with invalid license, he doesn't even have a license. So they have to throw his out, but he's gone to jail. In this young lady's situation, she actually had a driver's license.
Right.
So when hers got suspended, she went to jail for driving with license invalid. So it's the situation you talked about, Robert, where then she's going to have a surcharge. I mean, she's going to get another suspension for driving with a suspended license without paying those surcharges, right?
That's right, and it just compounds. It just gets deeper and deeper, and that's what's happened to you. I mean, when you talked about the judge dismissing your case, were you talking about a municipal or a justice of the peace type court, or were you talking about 1201 Franklin where Vivian and I are practicing.
No, I was talking about driving records. She dismissed the ticket.
But were you going to be charged with a real case? You know, not like a Class C, but a Class B for driving with your license invalid.
No, I wasn't. They I guess, I don't know if because it was an ID number and it wasn't a driving license number, they couldn't do it. But
where were you?
I was in county. And
I think he has had. I think he's gone that far, and you know they do it by TV. So I think when they talk to that probable cause judge, I think he has gone that far, but it just never made it all the way up because they didn't take it.
You're probably lucky because they can arrest you for driving while your privileges are suspended, even though you don't have a license, and it's the same thing. But it could be that you ran into somebody that didn't quite understand that, and that's to your benefit, or it could have happened in a Makawa or one of the city jails where they didn't pick that up.
I think they're doing a lot of that now, though. There was a time when people with their privileges suspended got arrested a lot, but it seems over the last few years, just like when DA Pat Lycos stopped taking the crack pipe residue cases, they really stopped taking those charges for the privileges, not for real court, Class B and above. I think they stopped doing that so that wouldn't be so crowded. I think that they're just doing that on the Class C level now.
maybe that's what happened today because, like I said, I got a ticket today. And it was for no driving license. And if my driving license was suspended and I have surcharges, they would have taken me to jail for it. They wouldn't let me pass.
If they ran your license, they may not have run your license, or they may have just cut you a break.
Okay.
Because I think on there, I looked at it, they acted like that was your driver's license.
Yeah,
they
my ID number. They gave a ticket to my ID number.
They gave a ticket to your ID number, but they say driver's license on there. But it's really not. It's an ID number.
An ID.
Right. Wow. So anyway, Sylvester, so do you think that your amnesty program will help the caller that we had, even though she has surcharges on top of surcharges?
I think it will. I think it certainly can reduce whatever her total might be.
Now let me ask you about that 250. Could it be 250 on 250 per suspension, or is it total?
I think the way it is written, let me just say, the DPS indigent program, which is what it is, applies to individuals living at or below 125% of the federal poverty level. And if an individual qualifies, it will reduce the surcharge amount owed to 10% of the total, not to exceed $250.
That's the total.
And then it says, and it will also remove suspension of driving privileges for those who qualify for the program while making payments, subject to what to what you had to say. So I mean, for a lot of people, it can be major. Now it may not reduce everything, it may not wipe it totally out, but I think it puts you back in the realm of possibly being able to get your driver's license.
Right.
And moving forward.
I can comment on that. If you could do that, if you can get your surcharges wiped out for $250, you might have other suspensions for driving with a suspended license. You probably do. You probably have suspensions that go 2 or 3 years into the future, maybe longer. You can get an occupational license. There are lawyers like myself and others who will do that for you. As long as you're not having a burden by $19,000 worth of surcharges, then we can get a judge who, on a showing of essential need, which you would have. You live in Houston, you have to drive. I mean, we're not, our mass transit is not the best, I'm sorry to say.
Well, you're true.
And so that, it's like in the old days, when you had to have a horse, you've got to have a car if you're living in Houston, for the most part. And so those judges understand essential need, and then we can get licenses for people to work, to go to school, for child care, for court, if they are on probation or they need to do court-ordered activities. We can get those licenses during the period all the way through to the time and keep you from getting, that way you can't get a new driving while license suspended case because you have permission from a judge and then an occupational driver's license actually issued by the Department of Public Safety. And as long as you have that license with you and the court order that says, I can drive during these hours for these purposes in this location, and you show that to the police officer, you're fine. The money is what's really killing people.
Robert, let me ask you this, though. Could Ronald actually do that since he's never actually had a driver's license?
He can, but he has to get rid of those surcharges.
Okay.
The the judge can actually grant, for people who have less money and who can find a way to pay the surcharges, we can get an occupational license for them, even with these multiple suspensions, including a surcharge, to give them time to pay out, to get to work,
right,
to earn the money to pay the surcharges, if it's manageable. There was a case where one judge said, I'm not going to give you an occupational license unless you first pay off your surcharges. That was appealed. It was not down here. It was appealed, and the appellate court said, no, Judge, you can't do that. That's abusing your discretion. So they have to allow you to work, to get to work to pay your surcharge.
Well, I know it's starting to be time for you to leave, so let's talk a little bit more about, I'm curious about the money when the government says it's going towards something and it goes somewhere else. How does that happen, Sylvester?
Well, basically, let's say the surcharge is imposed on people. They start paying. Since this program has been put in place, we've collected probably, let's say, a little bit more than $1 billion.
Wow, just on surcharges?
Just on surcharges.
Wow,
okay.
That's a lot of money.
And approximately $368 million, if my figures are correct. I'm Vice Chair of Appropriations. Was supposed to be going to the trauma centers, okay? And what has happened is that the legislature has the authority to appropriate money that comes into this particular account to the trauma centers. But we can decide how much. And so there's $300 million that's sitting in the state's budget that's dedicated and targeted for the trauma centers that we are holding on to, or the legislature's holding on to, because every dollar that's kept in the state's treasury can be used to what we call certify the account, certify the state's budget. So if we don't spend it, then it just makes our bank account looks bigger, and we can use it as collateral for the state's expenses.
Wow.
So $300 million is simply sitting there. We collect it from Ronald and others. The legislature holds on to it. We don't send it out to the hospitals. The hospitals are complaining, saying you got the money. We put the program in place. You got the money, and we're supposed to be trying to keep people alive and when they come in and to our emergency rooms, but the legislature is holding on to it. It's not the only one. It's one of many accounts where people are paying the money for a particular purpose, and the legislature is holding on to it. And I think that's one of the reasons why Republicans and Democrats, I think, will join me in this upcoming session and say, number one, the program is counterproductive. Because it doesn't make any sense for 1.2 million people to be on our roads driving without a license, without insurance. That's counterproductive. We want people to work. They can't get to work, so that's counterproductive. So I think there will be many in the legislature who will join with me in saying, okay, we've tried our best to put some lipstick on this pig, but it's still what it is. And so now it's time simply to end the program, to end the surcharges.
The surcharge program.
We still want our streets safe. We still need the trauma hospitals. Now, the hospitals are not yet on board with eliminating it because their deal is, as bad as the surcharges may be, we're still getting some of the dollars. We're just not getting all of the dollars. And so when you eliminate that, Representative Turner, then where is the money going to come from, even with the few dollars that we are receiving?
Wow. If you eliminate the program, do you think that the legislature would vote to actually give them that $300 and some odd million, or would you just probably keep it?
Well, the Speaker just set up a special committee to deal with the dedicated accounts, which includes this particular fund. I am on that committee, and there's a growing push now to spend the monies for their intended purposes. So I think in this upcoming session, two things I think are subject to happen. Number one, the trauma hospitals will probably receive more of the money that's sitting in the state's account, which will be a good thing. And number two, I think we'll go to eliminate the surcharge program. I think we'll correct some mistakes that we've made over the last 8 or 9 years.
I believe that you're probably going to get a lot of support from Republicans. you understand DWIs are not, a DWI can be given to all socioeconomic.
It has no respect of parties.
No respect of social position or anything. And of course, so there are many Republicans who have paid surcharges. There are many Republicans' children who have been arrested early in this, before the Class Cs were brought on, because somebody along the line, a parent, for example, child got a ticket for no insurance because it just wasn't in the car, driving back from Austin or College Station. The parent sees the ticket, sends a check in. Okay, the ticket's, and understand paying a ticket is a conviction. You hear people say, oh, it just goes away if you pay the ticket. Well, no, it doesn't go away. It goes on your record. Right. So they pay the ticket, everybody's happy, and then the child gets another ticket going back or some other day, and they get arrested because their address was not good. Right. Their surcharge suspension was automatic. They never got the notice of the surcharge. Boom, the Republican's child is in a jail in Hempstead or Giddings or Colorado County. Right. That's not fun. They don't like that.
Plus, we're calling it a surcharge, but it's no more than a tax.
It's a tax.
It's a tax.
That's no more than a tax.
It's a tax that affects poor people, and a lot of young, affluent kids. Yeah, it's kids.
So for people who are anti-tax, well, we're going to give them an opportunity to be true to their philosophy.
Let's take a call, please. Caller, you're on.
Hey, good evening. I have a question. I tuned in, and I've been watching the show for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm not sure if I understand exactly what the amnesty program is for, so I just thought I'd ask. Does it apply to any type of ticket, for example, speeding tickets and those types of things?
If there's a surcharge on a moving violation, and the attorney here can certainly speak to it.
It applies to the surcharge program only. It's an indigency program. Now, before that indigency program, they did have an amnesty. One time, correct. I know of one time where it was publicized. You missed it, Ronald. Yes, you did. Where if you could just basically wipe it out if you came forward. A lot of people took advantage of that, but now there's the indigency program, but it only applies, as far as I know, to unpaid surcharges.
Correct.
So that's on DWIs, driving with your license suspended,
insurance,
no insurance tickets, because now when you get those tickets, you also, DPS gives you a tax, assesses a tax on you that has to be paid, and that tax is called a surcharge. So that's what we're talking about. And Ronald here is 21, and he has $19,000 worth of surcharges, so he can never get his driver's license. And so we're talking about how you can get these surcharges because you get no insurance or no driver's license tickets, and so you'll never get a driver's license.
Right. Would a surcharge be the same thing? For example, when I got this speeding ticket, it was outside of Houston, and excuse me, I let it go for a couple of months, and then tried to write to this small town to take the driver's ed, but I didn't hear back from them. And a couple of weeks later, I got a letter from the state saying that the $150 speeding ticket was now $500, and I couldn't renew my license in a year if I didn't pay it. So would that difference be like a surcharge? Is that what the increase would be for? Do you know?
That is not a surcharge. You're getting hit with collection fees, which is another add-on that the legislature has tacked on to unpaid fines, delinquent fines. You might have a deny renewal on your license. Have you gotten anything saying you cannot renew your license?
Correct. It came from the state, and it basically said that if I think it gave me maybe a couple of years. It said that when I renewed my license in like 2013, if the $500 wasn't addressed or paid, then I would not be able to renew my license. So I thought that potentially would be a surcharge, but you're saying that's collection fees, right?
It's a different program. You're looking at really two programs. The collection fees are added on when a ticket gets delinquent and you owe a fine and court costs. And it gets unpaid for too long, there's additional charges that are tacked on top of that. The deny renewal is another collection mechanism where the Department of Public Safety has been notified by the city or the Justice of the Peace Court that you're unpaid, and they will, under this program called the Omni program, is the local name or common name, they will not allow, DPS will not allow you to renew your license if you haven't taken care of your business in that city or Justice of the Peace Court. And beyond that end of your, when your birthday anniversary comes up and your license time to renew, you stay in an expired status until you fix it.
Until I take care of the issue.
That's right.
Okay, hey, you guys have been a lot of help. I appreciate it and enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that was an interesting call. Do you want to share some more information about driver's license consequences?
Well, one of the unintended consequences that I've seen involves commercial drivers. Before this law was passed in 2003, it went into effect September 1, 2003, there was a flat prohibition for commercial drivers to receive any kind of probation if their license was going to be suspended for one reason or another, like they were following too closely or had an accident, alcohol in their system. There are suspensions for commercial drivers that are valid, that are good. We don't want commercial drivers with heavy trucks driving down the road with alcohol in their system or driving recklessly. However, when this law came into effect, which is just about money and not about driving, the prohibition for probation for commercial drivers has remained on the books. So I've had commercial drivers who might have just a $100 surcharge and didn't know it. They got a ticket in a little town for speeding or failing to signal. They paid that. The next thing they know, they get a notice from the Department of Public Safety that their license has been suspended because their address wasn't, again, the address wasn't correct or they ignored the notice. They're going to be suspended for the no surcharge. They find out they paid the $100, but they were driving a year ago with a suspended license for surcharge. We fight that, and we find that the law will not allow those commercial drivers to keep driving. There is no way they can be probated. And so they are, some can lose their rig and their careers over $100 for a surcharge.
Wow, so what are you doing in those situations?
Well, we appeal it down to their appeal rights, but even I've briefed it, I've looked through it, I can't get the courts, I mean, it's there. You cannot probate these licenses, so we try to reduce the suspension to the shortest time we possibly can. We're going to get suspended. A commercial driver is going to get suspended for something like this, and the question is, we just hope to get it so short that they can live through it and still pay their truck note and support their family.
Wow, that's awful. Do you think that's something also that Sylvester Turner could look at in the January legislative
Well, if they
session?
don't do away with the surcharge program totally, they should implement that aspect of it. They should at least modify it to allow commercial drivers to drive their commercial rig. I mean,
but if they do away with the program totally, like he's talking about, then it'll help your commercial
well,
drivers.
it could, except that what do we do about people that are where it's happened already before the law changed? I mean, you still might have people that are, it's going to come up from prior suspensions.
Could they have some type of amnesty for them?
They could if they, the legislature can do what they want to do.
Right, well, I'm just saying that might be something you might want to tell him so that when they start working on this program, they can add to it.
And Representative Turner just had to leave, but I would have liked to have told him, you know,
I know, we need
stick
to
that one in there.
Stick that little paragraph in there.
Yeah, and I can say something else about Ronald's predicament. There is something called non-owner insurance that you should be able to purchase, and it allows you to drive. Even you can purchase it without a license, and it insures you on any car in the world that you do not own.
See, now I always thought you had to have a driver's license to get non-owner's insurance. You just didn't own a car.
You can there are companies that sell it, and there are also companies that sell insurance to people who do own cars that don't have licenses. For example, people are undocumented. They have to drive. They have to go to their work, but they cannot get a license. But don't we want them insured?
Of course.
We want them
I
insured.
thought they could get licenses. I know there was a time in the world that I'm from San Antonio that people that, there was a Spanish-speaking, driving test. So I thought they could.
There was, if they're not documented now, that's something that's been, that's come down in the last number of years. They have to produce a Social Security card. They've got to produce documents that they are legally in the United States now. It used to be that they could get one.
Right.
But
I liked it better when it was like that. I liked it when we used our country like we're a nation of immigrants, like we really are supposed to be. If you're here and you're working and you want to get a driver's license, at least you know what the laws are. You've taken a test, even if it's in Spanish or Vietnamese or whatever language you speak. You've gotten insurance in case you hit me in an accident, and let the government deal with the other part later. But I like it the way it was before people start getting so tough on. Because now if you get hit by a Hispanic driver, we've prevented them from having the insurance that they could have or the driver's license. So I think sometimes we take this.
There are unintended consequences.
That's an unintended consequence.
Unintended consequences. And
we're dealing with our superiority, and we want to be a country that says, they're illegal, they shouldn't be here. But if they're working, let them avail themselves to all of the processes and the requirements of working.
If we get hit by someone that doesn't have a license but they're driving anyway, wouldn't you want them to have insurance?
I would, and so I would like them to have a driver's license, insurance, and the like. I mean, if they're here, they're here.
So one thing that we can do, and this is only for those that can afford it, is you purchase uninsured motorists. Around here, there are a lot of people that are driving without insurance. So uninsured motorist is not that expensive, but you have to have a liability insurance to get uninsured motorists. So that protects you against someone who's hit you, who is at fault, who has no insurance or not enough insurance. And one other thing too, early on, there were people in your situation were able to discharge some of these surcharges in bankruptcy. There's been a federal case, a bankruptcy case that says no, DPS fought that, and they won. You cannot discharge the surcharges in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You might be able to get some kind of payment plan in bankruptcy, but you can get that anyway.
Wow, that's another interesting tidbit to know about. Let's tell us something else that's interesting. So I know a lot of people with money get DWIs. So tell us about how the surcharges affect DWI, people who get DWIs.
Well, there are, as Representative Turner mentioned early on, it's $1,000 a year for 3 years if you're convicted of a DWI. And a conviction happens even if you probate the DWI. You cannot get deferred adjudication for a DWI, and that's been in place since 1984. It's $1,000 a year for 3 years, $3,000. There are there's a surcharge for a second DWI that's $1,500 for a second offense per year, but DPS is not enforcing that. There's also one if your breath or blood is 0.16 or higher of $2,000 a year. That's $6,000 over a 3-year. They're not enforcing that either.
So when you say they're not enforcing it, what do you mean?
I just mean they're assessing you $1,000 a year. I don't know of anyone who's paid more than $1,000 a year for any DWI, no matter what.
So
whether it's second DWI, felony DWI, high blood or low blood or whatever.
But the law states they should, but they only charge everybody $1,000 at this time.
But it's still $1,000.
That's a lot of money. And if you don't pay it, you lose your driver's license. You can't get your driver's license back unless you pay that $1,000 and jump through all the other hoops that they require you to
jump through all the hoops.
Because there's a driving safety course for DWI people, and there are different hoops that you have to jump through.
Right. Well, you gotta typically, if it's a first offense DWI and you're on probation, there's certain things you have to do to not lose your license for the DWI, but you still get the surcharge. So you've got to pay the surcharge.
Okay, let's talk about some other consequences. We talked about DPS, how DPS notifies you. We've told the public that it's your responsibility to change your address within 30 days of moving. Please, when you move, change your address. If you're a young person, make sure your mail, your address on your driver's license is a permanent address, like of your mother or your grandmother or somebody else. Make sure it's your mom, your grandmother, somebody where they will always get your mail.
And make sure they read the mail. Make
Right,
sure when
right.
the mail comes from the Department of Public Safety, you pay attention. Don't throw that in the trash, and when you get it, read it. And if you don't understand it, just find a traffic lawyer, Google a traffic lawyer, and call them up. What do I do? Because there's a 20-day time frame within which, from the date of the letter, to request a hearing. If you request a hearing, we can save your license.
Wow.
We can save your license.
And that's a good thing.
Unless you're a commercial driver.
Then you have other problems. But you need to know a good traffic lawyer in the meantime. So remember what Robert said, DPS does not forward your mail. So if you put a change of address at the post office, your regular bills will be changed, but not DPS. You have to specifically go to DPS and change your address. Now, I don't keep up with this. You might be able to do it online, but I know that you probably have to go in person.
Well, yeah, you can do it online, and sometimes after a period of time you have to go in person, but it's getting better. DPS are a little bit behind, but they're getting better about doing it online.
Okay. So you wanted to talk about how to avoid convictions in the first place. So let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, what's causing the surcharges are reports from the municipal court, any municipal court, or just the piece where you've gotten the ticket. That's from being convicted on whatever the case was. If it's speeding, in most, speeding, but where you're getting the surcharge is your license was invalid or you didn't have insurance. There are ways to keep those from being reported to the Department of Public Safety if you know what you're doing. Most people, a lot of people don't understand how to avoid. They think, oh, if you pay the ticket, it goes away. But that is a conviction. It gets reported on your driving record, and then DPS sees it. They send out the notice for the surcharges. So you don't want to get your legal advice from court personnel and clerks behind the window who say, if you just pay it, it'll go away. You just don't want to do that.
Right. You want to hire a traffic ticket lawyer, and like Robert said, you can Google good ones. There are a lot of them to do traffic tickets. So make sure that you're concerned about those things, because unintended consequences are paying large fees. I'm sure Ronald would have never thought at 16, when he's getting these tickets, that he would someday have $19,000 in surcharges and couldn't get a driver's license. Who would ever think that? I thought that was crazy. So there's another part we wanted to talk about, how you pay your surcharges. Let's talk about that.
Well, for those who can afford it, you could actually just pay it all in one lump sum if you could do that. It used to be that you had to pay it once a year for 3 years, and that was the way it was. That's the way it was, and so somebody might pay the first year, and I saw this happen. They thought, okay, I paid my surcharge. Year 2 comes along, and they don't realize there's another surcharge. And then they'll get delinquent, boom, they get suspended right there. That's happened. So now if your surcharge, let's say, is $300 for driving on an invalid license, or we didn't talk about the points, but we can talk about the points. You can just write a check for $300 if that's your surcharge over 3 years, and it's done. Or you can pay it $100 a year, the way it was originally set up. Or you can pay so much a month, every month for the whole 3-year period. Beyond that, there really isn't any other way except the indigency program. Points. You can get surcharges from, Sylvester mentioned it earlier. If you accumulate 6 or more points over a 36-month period, once you get to 6, there's a $100 surcharge that's owed, and it's owed until those points drop below 6. And if you get another moving violation, a moving violation is 2 points. A moving violation that results in an accident is 3 points. If you keep getting those, you can continue on and just have surcharge after surcharge after surcharge. You shouldn't do that if you're use somebody help when you get a ticket. Get some help.
Right.
We can keep that from happening.
Right, and I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of times people want to handle it themselves, and that's why when you go down to the municipal court, you see a whole bunch of poor people down there, and a lot of times you get arrested. One of the things, since I do a lot of jailable offenses, what I tell my clients all the time is pay your traffic tickets or go to jail and just sit them out, because one of the things that happens is if you're a fugitive, even if it's a Class C misdemeanor fugitive, that gives the police probable cause to search everything that you have. I mean, you could have, you know, $500,000 worth of dope in your car because you had a Class C misdemeanor ticket and traffic warrant. You're a fugitive, and they can go through your stuff.
So I would caution, though, about sitting it out or paying your ticket. This is what we're talking about. That's a conviction.
Right, right.
So you need to tell them, maybe you need to find a way to keep it from getting reported to the Department of Public Safety, but do that.
Well, some people need to just deal with their ticket so that they don't have other larger problems. But I totally agree that if you have a larger problem, you do need to deal with it the right way. If you can afford to pay your ticket, sit it out, pay your surcharges. But if you can't, you should always hire a traffic ticket lawyer. That's what I was going to say. A lot of my clients will hire me because they have a felony, but it came because they had a Class C that turned into a warrant. And if they would have just paid a traffic ticket lawyer and gotten that traffic ticket dealt with, then they wouldn't even be a fugitive. So I guess one of the things I want my viewers to deal with is if you get a traffic ticket, get you a traffic ticket lawyer. Some of them are as cheap as $100 a ticket. Some of them are $150, some are $250. But in the end, because we see that our Texas legislature is attaching all of these huge fees, surcharges of $1,000. Who would have ever thought that? Ronald, would you ever thought that, you don't pay a $100 ticket, you're going to, start getting $1,000 surcharges assessed to your license? Who would ever think that? So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, as a community, we've talked about a lot of real serious cases, but this can be serious. This is serious, too, when a 21-year-old owes $19,000 in surcharges and he cannot get his driver's license. Never had a driver's license. That's crazy.
It's serious for all concerned if you cannot get a license and you live in Houston, Texas, because you literally can't work. And a lot of employers, almost all employers now, will search your driving record in addition to your criminal record. But you've got to be able to get to work and not be subject to getting arrested along the way.
Exactly. And like you said earlier, Houston is just not a good transit city. It's not a good system.
It's getting better. I had to cross some railroad tracks to get those new tracks out there. It almost knocked out my pan in my car coming in here. But yeah. No, it's better. But it's not going. I mean, the city's too spread out. It drives. I mean, this city thrives on the automobile. That's just the bottom line for Houston. That's the way it is. And these laws are creating and crippling some people, lots of people.
Lots of people. Now, we're about to close it down. We have about 5 more minutes, so we're going to give everybody a chance to say a couple of minutes to close it down. Ronald, I know you're young, but you have a voice here. So is there anything that you would like to tell young people, or if you've learned anything tonight that you would like to share? I want you to try to say some closing comments, please.
Well, all I got to say is if you're getting tickets and you're getting surcharges, try to take care of them before they pile up. And once you get so buried under them, it's really hard to get out like me. I have over $19,000. If I would have started whenever I was 16 and got me a traffic lawyer, I might would have had a better job and we would have never had so many tickets. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
I'm just saying. So what have you learned tonight?
Yeah, I've learned that. I learned if you have tickets, try to take care of them. And, if you have the money and you have the transportation, get you a driving lawyer and get those tickets taken care of.
And so, but for your situation, have you learned what you're going to do about your $19,000? Isn't it great that we had our state rep to come in and talk to us and let us know that if you apply properly, that you can pay up to $250 possibly to get all these $19,000 surcharges off? And it might be $250 in a couple of different programs, but that's doable for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I can definitely do with that, which that's 10% of every.
Well, he said 10%, which will be $1,900. But the maximum is $250. So, because they never anticipated that anybody would have $19,000 worth. So they have a cap. So the highest is $250. So it's basically the lower of the two. So
I'm definitely going to look into that.
you're going to look into that, and I would suggest that you hire a traffic ticket lawyer because you got a ticket today.
Yes, I did.
And you need someone that's going to be professional to pull your driving record and to help you navigate through the process. I mean, you can certainly go online and try to do it yourself, but I just think that because you like to drive and cars are your thing, I want today. This is October 17th, 2012. I hope my charge to you is by January 2013. I want this straight, Ronald.
I'm definitely going to look into it, and I'm going to get it taken care of.
So, because I want you to get a commercial driver's license.
Yes, I will try.
And I want you to get a regular driver's license and a commercial driver's license so that you can do what you love, and that is work with cars, putting stereo systems in cars. You could have a business where you have a mobile company where you go. I mean, you might have it now, but you're not supposed to because you're not supposed to drive. But you have too much talent in that regard not to be doing it legitimately. Okay, so Robert, let's have your closing comments, please.
Well, I think that Ronald's an example of someone who's been his own lawyer since he's 16 years old. You have not hired a professional.
Not once.
Not once. This doesn't happen. This is an extreme case. But I think the point that I want to make is at least call a traffic ticket lawyer. Call them up. We'll talk to you. Everybody will talk to you and give you some guidance on what the do's and don'ts are and what we or someone can do to help you. Call. It's not going to cost anything.
Right.
And if you have suspensions that are beyond, in addition to surcharges, which many people do, you can get relief. That's the other thing I want you to take away. You can get an occupational license. You can get time to pay the surcharges or to get money in order to set up a payment plan to pay the surcharges. And an occupational license allows that. And that's an important thing that people can get.
I think that's a very good point. We have about 2 minutes more, so is there any other items that you can shed on us for the night?
You want me to fill in 2 minutes?
Yeah, I want you to fill in 2 minutes, please.
Just
give me like a common case that you worked on today. Just tell us a little bit something of a problem and a resolution.
Well, these commercial drivers are a big problem. They're a big problem when they get a notice, and it's typically they get a ticket. Maybe they didn't have their insurance in their personal car. They could have been taking a vacation, and they got an insurance ticket. They didn't have their insurance. They may have lapsed. Sometimes you just lapse and don't pay, and you get convicted of that. That's something that's really been bothering me because all I can do is reduce the suspension period. When someone gets a notice of suspension who has a regular license, we can help you. There's 20 days to request a hearing. I mentioned that earlier. You have to read these letters. We request the hearing. We go and hearing, and until the hearing is set, your license stays good. When we go to the hearing, we can usually come away, almost always, unless you have a commercial license, keeping your license intact. And that's important to know.
Okay, Robert, well, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight, volunteering your expertise in the surcharges in the traffic ticket area. I appreciate my guest, Sylvester Turner, for telling us about the law with our Texas legislature. I appreciate Ronald for telling us his story. Remember, viewers, I want to tell your story, whether it's capital murder, whether it's aggravated robbery, or whether it's surcharges that you're being arrested for. We want to have an informed community. We want to understand our criminal justice system and understand the laws of the state of Texas. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.